Good morning. Welcome to Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. The date is the 28th of October and we are live. Item 1, apologies. Are there any apologies, Mandy?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillors Farrell and the leader, Councillor Cooper.
Are there any other apologies? No? Thank you. Item 2, do we have any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of September and the 6th of October 2025. Is everyone happy with these minutes? Yeah. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Yeah, thank you. Item 4, local government reform. I'm pleased to welcome the Deputy Leader, Councillor Murray, who will speak on the work being carried out about local government reorganisation. He is with Lindsay Bizzle and Catherine Ross, and if you could go through the process, the criteria, what's the process and the time going ahead, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. As we all know, last week we had a full debate in full council. It was broadcast live and it was made very clear by all the members in there. It literally was unified. That local government reorganisation is not something that we want, and certainly not in Staffordshire. It's not needed, it's not required, and was never asked for. The real prize, as again we made very clear in Council last week, is devolution. Full devolution for a single Staffordshire authority could and would bring great benefits to this county. It would realign us, it would give us a seat at the table, it would allow us to manage our finances for how it is required. It could be of great benefit, but the local government reorganisation, as set out with the white paper from December, is all about unitary authorities with no set timeline for devolution, and there lies the problem. As you know, we were required by government to put forward an option, and it wasn't necessarily one that the county, the city or the districts or boroughs, even communities themselves wanted, but that was most likely to succeed. It was the first remit I put forward when we started this work, was to make it non-political, unbiased, to follow the rules, the criteria set before us only. There was no point, no need to make this a personal choice, as it was not a personal choice we would ever wanted to have made. So we followed their rules, their game, using their referee, a statement I've used many times. But as we went through it all, we know there is no perfect option for local government reorganisation. Every option involves balancing important priorities and making inevitable trade-offs, where some options are strong, others may not be, and vice versa. There are also many challenges that will be shared, whether the option is east-west, north-south, or any combination. Things like making bigger councils feel local, or how safely land vital how vital social care services in new authorities. The east-west option is all about parity and equity. We don't want either new councils to be disproportionately burdened or disadvantaged because of our residents, regardless of where they live, deserve quality and value for money and services. I made a commitment from the outset to put forward an option that is backed by evidence, an option that is more likely to deliver the best, not just for the individual wards we serve, but for the county and the city as a whole. You'll see in the papers that we have considered a raft of evidence from 8 possible options for local government reorganisation, accessing them using expert financial modelling against the government's 6 criteria for change, and through balanced analysis to understand how key financial, social and economic factors are distributed across the options. We diligently checked and challenged the data. It's not a pick and mix of who we would like to be with, or perhaps who we wouldn't like to be with, as we've seen many online cases for. It's about what is fair, equitable, and gives us the best chance of delivering our aspirations for the Staffordshire people and our amazing county. We have used the government's own criteria, and the east-west option simply stacked up better than a north-south split, or indeed any other of the options we examined. Although local government reorganisation agenda is rushed, it's been forced upon us. We will continue to champion for Staffordshire, to continue to challenge the government on the proposal, and the management of Stoke's financial legacy. And on a devolution agenda, we will rightly allow all powers and funding to flow from the government to local decision-making, rather than pushing this ill-advised reorganisation of local council structures through first. Finally, before we enter discussion, I'd like to stress once again that this will ultimately be the government's decision, not ours. But I do believe we must work with the evidence on what is most likely to succeed. Whether the option the government proceeds with will make this work, we simply must put our communities are counting on us. We've gone through a series of actions on this, from informal cabinet to a formal cabinet decision. We had full debate in council last week, and next week it goes before full cabinet again. I'll stress again very clearly, this is following their rules, not a choice that we wanted to make or we wished to participate in. But it is a required action for us to take. It is an option. It's not a preference. It's not our preferred choice. It's not something we would insist that the government follow. It simply follows their criteria, their rules, and by that criteria, the best option by the evidence of PricewaterhouseCoopers shows this is the most balanced option. And again, we wanted to make this very, very transparent, hence why the timeline, early discussions with the officers, we made sure this date was put in for scrutiny before it went to Cabinet, so everyone could have their say on it. It's why, again, we put through for full open debate in Council last week, so everybody could be heard. It's very important that people are clear what this means, the timeline we are taking, the processes, and our openness to everybody to what this actually means. And I'll gladly open up to any questions and points you wish to raise.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions? Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody, and thank you, Councillor Murray, for the run through. I'm keen if we can avoid it to sort of have a rerun of the council meeting on Thursday. I think we had a very long and very good discussion there, didn't we? So just want to cover a couple of points. So firstly, and then I'll come back with a couple of other points. Could you just talk us through the process from the point where this council makes a recommendation through Cabinet to a decision being made by government? And the thing that I'm most concerned to understand in that process is the basis on which the government will make a decision. My understanding of the rules are that the government will choose the option that most closely matches their criteria. That's logical, isn't it? And I believe the usual process in government is that civil servants will make a recommendation to ministers. The ministers will then either follow that or they have to have a very good reason that stands up to a judicial review not to. The reason why I'm asking that is, my concern is nobody in our council chamber was supportive of this option that this council is planning on putting forwards. Nobody was supportive of it. It might best match the criteria that the government have set out, but there's no support for this in its own right. And I'm very concerned that this will be the option that government takes up. And I think we've just got to be very clear about how that process is going to play out and what we are doing if we put this option forwards. It will be taken as this council's proposal. It will be taken as having local support, therefore, because it is this council's proposal. And I am very concerned that it will be taken up and then we'll have to live with it for a very long time afterwards. So could you just talk us through that decision-making process? Thank you.
I think first it shows the openness and the pure clarity we started off with. You just acknowledge that the proposal we put through just by following that criteria is actually the best option. And that is a sad case, because it's the 6 criteria the government put out shows the insanity of their criteria and their policy, because it does not represent or give options that allows the representation of Staffordshire as a whole. And that was the clear remit, just to follow their criteria. Now, if it does, that the government sees that one of our first acts as this brand new council is that we actually found the model they forgot to look at, it sort of shows we did the work first as well. Now, I really hope, and this is something I know we have absolute cross-party support on, we can postpone, at the very least, postpone LGR, because their plan is not right. But we do want a full devolution, a full Staffordshire, including Stoke-on-Trent, devolved power. That would bring benefit. Does not require LGR and unitaries to do that. Other areas have not. But as for the process and the criteria, the legality of that process, I would actually like to give this over to the expert on this, the guidance I took. I'd like to pass it on to Lindsay Bissell, if I may.
Morning, everyone. So just a quick run through of kind of what we've learned from the government. So when the devolution white paper was released, that there were no deadlines other than the 28th of November, which is the statutory submission that we need to submit. In July, we then received a letter from the government, as did every other council within the area, with a little bit more information. But I must say, there's still no definitive date. So as we know it today, the area, and that's each council within the area, submit to government on the 28th of November. The government advised us in July that what they will do over the spring, with a rough approximate date of finishing around May, is then consult on what they perceive to be the options. What we don't know is how they will choose those options. So where we're at the minute is we're actually watching really closely those that are going before us. So you'll know that there were some areas that went forward on what was called a devolution priority programme, six I think altogether. What we're doing is looking what's happening there, because that's the best information that we're getting at the moment to see, you know, kind of how others are progressing. Places like Surrey. What we know is that when the consultation finishes in May, we still don't know yet whether there's any difference in weighting on the MHCLG criteria. So I have personally asked central government, you know, of the 6 criteria, does one score 20%, one score, you know, is it, and they've said no, there's no weighting, so we don't know that either. What we do know in other areas is they've gone out with several options that they've consulted on. It's also a government-led consultation, not a council or area-led consultation. Again, I would expect that, I hope that we would be consulted from government to say this is where you need to kind of pitch that consultation, and is the groups that we know within the local area. What we then found out in July alongside of this is what will happen next is the consultation will close, and then around the summer, they said hopefully before the summer recess, they'll then come back to the area and let us know their final decision on what the government choose. Again, what we don't know is the methodology for working that out behind the scenes. We don't know if any is more weighted than the other. All we can do at the minute is look to our colleagues and counterparts that are going through this before we are.
Great, thank you both for that. So that's lovely and clear, isn't it? So I think what we do know is that in terms of the risk of judicial review, you would normally expect the government to apply its own criteria when making a decision. I think that's fair to say. If the county solicitor jumps up and down and waves at me, I'll change my view. So I think the point stands that there is a strong concern that this option will be the option that the government goes for. I think we just need to be clear as a council that this is going to be our proposal. We may not like LGR, and I'll come back to that point in a moment, but it will be our proposal. So I think we just need to be clear about that. The other question I had is around the equities. So an option that hasn't been discussed in any real detail is the option of having a single unitary for the whole of Staffordshire. Now, I believe the reason why is that there's a concern on the part of the administration that if we went for that option, which is the fairest in terms of spreading that debt burden, there's no getting away from the fact that any option that splits the county in half comes with it a big burden on whichever new council has Stoke-on-Trent's debt. I believe the reason why you don't want to go down that route is that you're concerned that it means that we would then be in a strategic authority and a mayoralty with potentially another area outside of Staffordshire. But I'd just be grateful if you could elaborate on that a little bit. And just with a view to what I hope might be the future where some of this is unwound, which is easier to unwind, these new councils with the reorganisation of services across 1.2 million people and councils with, I think, combined about 5,500 employees, or a mayoral strategic authority with a mayor and a handful of staff. So in terms of what we're trying to avoid and what we want, could you just talk me through your thinking on that?
Yeah, of course. For any strategic mayoral authority, you must have at least 2 unitaries or more underneath it. So if we went for a single Staffordshire, whole single Staffordshire, including Stoke-on-Trent, it would be a declaration that we wanted to become a combined authority. It's very clear and simple. That's a declaration for combined authority. That I do not, in my heart and within the evidence, believe should be an option. Stoke should come back into Staffordshire. It belongs. Stoke's problem is because it's so small, it is run up a debt. It is a very compact city with heavy demands upon it because of that. Now, to have a unitary council of under 300,000, as shown within the evidence, can never pay back its cost of running business. And that is clear why Stoke's debt has come up. That's amongst other decisions. That again could be easily solved with combining it through best practices. And there are some best practices that the City of Stoke have that we could bring into Staffordshire. Everybody has best practices. And that is the advantage of a strategic authority, is that you would bring in best practices over all. And then no matter which way an area is split, the equity and assets are shared equally, because you have a devolved authority above that allows that area to be governed equally without favour or bias. Now, without that devolved power, as we have right now is local government reorganisation with no set timeline for devolution, 2029 they may consider starting it, maybe, leaves us with 2 authorities that could be in direct competition with each other when asking for the overall funding from government for the county. Now, when you have assets based solely in one area more so than another, that can put added pressures. My biggest concern instantly with the North one was twofold. One, debt per capita. By having a higher debt, we cannot ignore the debt. It shouldn't be done that way, but it exists. You know, we can argue the clarity and reasoning to what should happen with the debt. It's an irrelevance. The government are imposing that we must take the debt. End of. Wonderful. Right, they can clear their books and put it onto somebody else, is the way that reads to me. But debt per capita. So if you have that excess debt to a smaller number of people, it will put added pressure onto council tax, onto businesses, and reduce services. So to have a larger area, a larger per capita, it eases the debt, disaggregates, and then values the services. That allows a greater chance of success. The other big one was, best example is with education. To allow both universities, the 2 largest colleges, to be under one authority, again puts the large assets and wealth under one area rather than 2. If we had devolved power, devolution first, it would be an irrelevance. But we do not. So you must understand the amount of college space that's taken up by adults that do not have basic English and math qualifications, that have less than 3 or 4 GCSEs. Some of these colleges are 40% occupied with that criteria. It's a huge strain on them. Within 2 years, we're going to be 120% capacity in our colleges. So where would the expanse go? Well, of course, it will go to the area with the highest level, the north, if both sat in the north. Leaving the south void, putting in an extra strain, the extra deprivation of education in areas like Cannock and Tamworth, Burton. Cannock has one of the worst in the country of education deprivation. Its levels are appalling. And yet our funding per child is again amongst the lowest. This is where devolution would be a benefit, because not only would we have a big voice at that table, we would have and be accountable for our own funding. We could then bring up and help those areas of deprived education, bringing up the whole area as one. And you say that a lot of people have argued over the size and the local community. Yet you mention of the single Staffordshire. Well, that just doubles that size and that. So the argument dispels itself. They will impose LGR at their will, not at ours. The best case we must first do is forget all politics, forget all bias and all our own self-intent, and work at the rules of the game and the criteria given before us to guarantee the success of Staffordshire and every person, every business, every child within that area. It is that simple, and the basis that they will measure it on is the criteria given, the consultants they use to advise them on, and we have done that case. And it guarantees the best option, not the right option, but the best option to secure everybody in the whole of Staffordshire. And that is our job. It's our sole purpose. This will last far, far beyond our time in office, in our time on this earth. This is legacy for decades to come. We cannot put this as a political or boundary forefront. It's not something we asked for, it's not something we wanted, and it's not something Staffordshire needs. Other areas with the unitary authorities devolve powers. Liverpool's a great example. They kept their city council. They still have some district councils. We do not need unitary authorities to be done first. Devolution would bring benefit. That I know we have absolute cross-party support on, including many Labour councillors and MPs support on that point. We know that's the right thing to do. But just in case they choose to carry on this pathway, the financial option that guarantees the support, the equity, the equality for all assets, all services across the county must be done through the cold light of day. And that is what this does. It is on that purpose only.
Thank you very much. Just a final point, and it's a nice opportunity to end on a point of unison. You're absolutely right. We are agreed across parties that local government reorganisation is not something that we want in Staffordshire. It's not broken in Staffordshire. The two-tier system works perfectly well, and we should be able to retain it. So thank you for agreeing to my proposal on Thursday that we write a joint letter for all elected members to sign, calling on the government to, I agree with you, I think it's probably sensible to ask them to cancel it, or if they're not willing to do that, to delay it. I think that's entirely sensible to have both in there. I'll really look forward to seeing a draft of that letter in due course, and it's good to be able to end on a point of unanimity. As you've rightly said, we're going to have to live with the consequences of these decisions by the government for a very long time, so we need to work together to try and get the best possible outcome for Staffordshire, which ideally would be that it doesn't happen at all. So thank you very much.
Just to clarify, that letter that you asked for in council is being drawn up as we speak. You will get forward copies of it before anything is sent. This is something we act for Staffordshire, not for any political tie or anything else.
Any other questions? Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. My concern is around SEND health and care and how LGR is going to impact the services that we provide going forward. With that being said, the deficit that we already have around SEND and taking on the deficit from Stoke, What mechanisms will we be putting in place to ensure that we can deliver the services?
Yeah, it's a huge point in there. A big thing is, again, is we looked at multiple options and the risks it would have on the most vulnerable, those that we have to protect the most. It's our duty to do so. And it's one of the big things that only came out in late August from the CCN. I'll quote what was said from them. So, by splitting county councils into smaller unitaries would hit millions of vulnerable people. A triple whammy of worse services, higher costs for care, not enough staff. A stark warning to governments if they do not stick to a 500,000 unitary or more. PwC shows that splitting councils as small as 300,000 would result in hundreds of millions in extra costs. I could go on with this. The smaller council option was you could always make an argument saying, well, we could find a way to make savings to cover the cost of transition. But what you could not make savings for with smaller unitaries, which would give that local identity one a little bit more focus, would be the cost of those important vital ones, adult child care, the SEND education and care that we must give, because it would never, ever pay. It would never be able to afford to do that. Again, why the split equals out, and why they are both very close. The north-south split, the west and east split, are very, very close on these points because of their sizing. Debt is something that exists. I think nearly every council have some debt. It's part of business. We all have mortgages. Every business has a debt. It's neither here nor there. Stokes is a little bit higher. My concern is with a combined authority. Shropshire has already put itself forward under special financial measures. It faces going into bankruptcy, and they're on about joining us. The ICB has already joined Staffordshire and Shropshire, Stoke-on-Trent, under the integrated care body. You can see which way the Labour government are leaning, which again places the emphasis on why I made the numbers match, not the political or public support will. Because the public shout-out is politics. You're looking to how they may praise you. No, this was about the numbers only, because they will still impose what they want. Are there any points on the SEND actual cost?
Just a big point, really. So, as you'll all know, the SEND deficit is a national issue, and sadly, I don't think LGR is going to solve this. I think just another point to build on Martin's around CCN reports and some of the national reports, but actually some of the things that we know, disaggregating social care is risky. Like, let me just be clear, that is really risky. And I think that's the reality of where we're at. And what I'd like to think, and what I'd hope every council within our area would support me on, is when the government do come back next year, say July, with a decision, that's the time we all really need to stick together. That's the time when each council needs to come together and make this work for the people of Staffordshire, because ultimately the government is making that decision. But actually, as officers, you know, as politicians, it's our job to make sure that no one person gets a worse service based on a structure that is imposed upon. So I'd like to think from an officer perspective that once we've got that decision back from government, we can all actually make this work and come together as one to make sure the residents of Staffordshire are not impacted, and SEND would be part of that, as well as children's and adult social care.
Just to add, should we, if the government choose the East-West split, then should we not at least be looking at ways early on to, you know, for ways that we can make the SEND and education budgets, funding streams, things like that?
If I'd like to pass over to one of our officer experts who's done a lot of work on this to give you a clarity on that answer.
Thank you, Martin. So currently in place is something called the statutory override. So SEND is funded from the dedicated schools grant, and that's a ring-fence budget. So what that statutory override does, it prevents the local authority charging that debt to the council taxpayer, effectively, so it ring-fences it on our balance sheet. That statutory override is now in place till 2028. So all of this should be concluded before any new unitary authority is established, whatever that format would be. In place at the moment, both in Stoke and at Staffordshire, there's something called a deficit management plan, which is looking at, within the system, how can that debt be lowered by means that are available to each local authority. But we're also awaiting a white paper from government that's now been pushed back into the early part of the new year as to how the government plans to correct that. So at the moment, absolutely, each local authority will be looking to minimise that cost, but really this is an issue for central government as to how they're going to fund that appropriately and pass that on to whichever authority exists in the future.
Any other questions? Councillor Bagley.
It wasn't a question per se, but it's kind of been alluded to in the answer there. It was just regarding the SEND budgets and the IFS report that's just been published about the special needs, like looking at an increased budget of £5 billion by 2029, and local council debts from SEND to £8 billion by 2028. Just sort of taking that into the equation, but it's sort of been handled by what you stated there. So thank you very much indeed. Cheers.
Councillor Pendleton.
Yes, I was just wondering, how will community engagement be maintained during and after reorganisation?
Yeah, it's a very, very important point. We have looked at this. One thing we would like to guide on, with or without LGR, are to expand our community hubs. Now, we have two great ones in Staffordshire, at Codsall and in Newcastle. You have the council officers and officers upstairs, alongside police, alongside child services, probationary services. I've actually been in there, and it really struck me earlier on. I'm upstairs, this big floor, you've got the police, you've got council officers, county officers were up there, you've got child probationary service there, and the one officer just suddenly got up, went over, and a police officer walking past, she went, oh, and she passed him a piece of paper, physically. Can you imagine that in today's world? Actually, physically, face-to-face, handing someone a bit of paper. You just know, whatever that case was, that was being dealt with instantly. That's how it works upstairs. Then downstairs, that front-facing for the public, you have the front desks where you can go still for all of your council services, regardless of what is required. You also had there the registry office that opened up larger to have functions in. They have lovely gardens in Newcastle, Town of Bloom, many a time a winner. You had a cafe in these, you have the library. Now, our libraries are struggling across the whole country. Books are not the in thing, you can have it on your phone, but they hold so much importance, not just for the reading the books, but the communities that take part in them, the community groups. So first of all, we'd like to bring up community hubs everywhere. It gets rid of those massive carbuncle council offices of the past, brings in an area where shared services, shared costs can all be in one place. They're a great plan. With, without LGR, it's something I think every single district borough should be looking at. And they also work in smaller areas, so you do not have to have the full service. You can have a smaller community hub with a library and a coffee shop, where again, council services can be there, bringing in that engagement, those questions, those answers that you require. Now, the other point is localised identity. Now, it is within the white paper to have committees. You want to have a committee on every single thing, but things like planning, licensing would be an important committee to have. The licensing hours of Lichfield would be very different to that of Newcastle, because Newcastle has a very large student and university population. Whereas Lichfield's hospitality cafe culture has been done brilliantly, has been built up, over many decades, is a fantastic model that other areas should copy. So their licensing would be very different. They're planning to keep in appearance of local area would be different to that to Stoke. would be even different to its neighbour of Cannock, my own. So local committees would be formed. It is actually being done across other unitary and devolved powers. Yorkshire has set up many committees in their forward plan which will look at these points, and this is how we keep the local identity. The other point to remember, and it is a misconception of some, just because you have a large unitary authority, of whichever size it may be, whether it be a single, whether it be a north, south, east, west, 3, 4, it doesn't matter, does not alter or change caption areas. It does not change it in any way, shape or form. Your caption area for education remains the same. Your caption area for social housing will remain the same. It still does. It's a caption area. A great example, it's somewhere where with devolution and aligning all local councils together under a single strategic plan, where they still allowed local identity works. Newcastle is a great example. They have Cheshire to the north, they have Shropshire to their west, they have the devolved power in the city of Stoke-on-Trent to their east, they have Stafford to their north, then they have their own. They have all these borders, all these different areas, all these different methods and authorities. Yet they have school, they have education, they have businesses working across all of them. They have done for decades. Now, under 1, 2 unitaries, that actually becomes easier because you're now all singing from the same hymn sheet, if you like. You are following the same plan, it will make it easier. Your caption area remains the same. No matter what, you'll have people, if it's a north-south, you will have people in North Stafford who will go to Stoke in Stoke, go to school in Stoke and vice versa. The caption areas remain, it does not change. So that local identity is still protected. We'll put other methods in. And our parish councils, although there is little guidance and there has been some confusion on how they exist, will still exist. That local voice will still be remembered. Our unitary councillors coming on up, how they interact, again, if we had devolved power, would be so much more beneficial because now we have a single financial pot where we are not beholden to what government sends or doesn't send. We can look after it ourselves where it's required. And that local voice will remain, and we can then focus extra resources where it is required first. Community identity is important, especially with a rural area like Staffordshire. We've got many, many rural villages. Rural communities are so important across this country, especially in a rural county like Staffordshire. And I think most people know my love of our farming and agricultural system already. It's rural. It's important, and I think, again, cross-party, and something Lindsay mentioned earlier, regardless of what comes forward, all districts, all authorities, and absolutely myself including this, whatever is put before us, we must work together to make it work for Staffordshire, whatever it may be. It's about the people of Staffordshire, and we must work together. Whatever comes forward, we will make it work. That's our job to do so.
Councillor Hall.
Hi, Martin. Councillor Murray, should I say? PwC will clearly get, I mean, they'll give an unemotional, fact-based kind of result on this, and I think the report is entirely logical and rational, actually, with the challenges. Of course, I wonder how much soft considerations have been considered, so perhaps that's a little bit of the question. But then we talk about the plan, and then we talk about and after the reorganisation, and I just think about that kind of tricky bit in the middle, which anybody who's been involved with M&A will realise that is one hell of a task. So, and I think, I suppose my question really is, how are the cultural sort of differences measured between the organisations? I mean, the City Council working with perhaps Lichfield or whoever in this case, because I mean, there used to be a phrase, I don't know whether it was McKinsey or where it came from, but we used to use it quite often. It was culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so I'd really like to know how you feel as though that's perhaps being considered in the plan, and also possibly more of the soft considerations as well regarding the residents. Thank you.
I have actually heard that saying before. Just because the area is bigger does not mean you get influenced by the larger body. And I think London has the examples of that with its many boroughs that exist under a monster of a mayoral authority. The size of that and how it keeps expanding. Yet its boroughs on its outskirts still have great identity. So it's not a great concern as long as you have that local voice. And we already have put methods in place for that. The committee, for one, the parish councils, unfortunately, it's where, again, they fail to look at governments that areas like Tamworth have no parishes. Cannock only has a very few. Cannock Town, there's 3 towns that have no parish council, no town council. Stafford, Cannock and Tamworth. Believe it or not. We need that identity anyway. I think it's a seriously strong point that we push through, and that comes down to that political will that makes sure we listen to constituents. Just because you have a city in there does not mean it overrides you all. And that also does lead to my other fear I did have with the North-South, that it would be just a Greater Stoke, that it would overshadow that of all the Moorlands and Newcastle. Moorlands has a lot of rural areas. Now then would South lose a lot of its identity, just be a group of 6 that dissolves away and overshadowed? Easily solved. You have a strategic mayoral authority. It brings everybody together as one. And it doesn't matter which way it's split up, because that then brings that local identity together as one. It gives a shout out to each area. We say they want to get rid of two-tier authority. Well, their method's still two-tier. You have district or unitary and a mayoral authority. It's still two-tier. So don't let this go from two-tier to one-tier government. We're saying it's still two-tier. It really doesn't change. But what devolution would bring us is a seat at that table. And a great example for that, and I can't emphasise how strong it would be an advantage. HS2 should have gone through to Manchester. We know that as cancelled and probably indefinitely postponed. So the Birmingham and Manchester mayors had a conversation, and they were going to build a track in their own train between Birmingham and Manchester, 2 great cities. Never came to speak to anybody in Staffordshire. We were left out again. It was the drive-through. And you know how much I've spoken on that one. It's again one I think every district, every councillor, every community leader will agree on. Staffordshire needs a voice. And that brings local identity. That voice does. That stops the overriding of the largest city, the larger authority having over the smaller. It protects the rural villages because you now get a shout out because we are looking at Staffordshire collectively rather than, well, that area's got a bit more money coming in, so it must be a bit more favourable. No, that's what's been happening. That's why you have the likes of Cannock with its education in such state deprivation. It's in the bottom 12% in the country because it's been forgotten, irrelevant. It's lost its voice. And that's under this system. Yeah, no, it's an important factor. It's a belief I think every single politician had, and the vast majority still have. But sometimes it gets lost in the political football that gets thrown up. Now this is where we all come together. Regardless of your party, we come together for the area and we make it work. Because we are not the ones imposing this, but we will be the ones that will have to fix it. And the other point that was made was the work that has to be done. Now already LGR is taken up with transformation, it's about 1/3 of your time extra. Should be focused on other stuff. Working out these plans is the easy point. That transformation, that transition across is going to be insane. The amount of work that is required by all officers across the districts, the boroughs, the county, to transition and merge into a new system under a single body of a unitary of whatever size. I do not believe they even have concept of how much work that will be, and there'll be no overriding executive then at the end, because all your districts, your city and your county council get dissolved. You're left with two authorities with no overriding executive to distribute the assets and the fundings that come on through. The work that entails coming forward by all officers, it's preposterous to think that could be done in a 1 year transitional time frame. It really, truly is. It's another failure of LGR, a rushed through proposal. But, and I'll bring back the original point, we have to put through the case. We have to work together to make it work. And this is where our local identities must still rise above all else. Committees, your parishes, your local councillors, your unitary councillors will still have the voice for their area. It's vitally important. It must remain no matter where you are in the UK.
Just going to reiterate a few points really that you might not know unless you live and breathe this, as some of us do at the minute. So unitarisation is not a new thing. So, you know, lots of councils years ago decided to unitarise kind of on their own decision really, as opposed to a government directive. What that means though is we're in a slightly better position in that we can learn from lots of other mistakes that have happened before us. So last year, Grant Thornton released a report around lessons learned from all the other councils that had unitarised. And that's a really good report to read, actually, because what that really does is give you a really good insight into how not to get that wrong, because it is such a large-scale programme of work, as Martin's just said. What we're doing, obviously, behind the scenes as officers is making sure we don't make those same mistakes. And just to reiterate again, when the government made that decision, I think all of us as public servants are going to want to come together to make sure that doesn't happen. Culture's a really good point, actually, because that's one of the things that learning from others has been one of the mistakes that's happened before. So not setting that culture right at the beginning for the new authority. And just from a process perspective, what actually happens is there'll be a shadow authority for 1 year. It's at that point really where this needs to really come together into setting the culture. Even things like, it might sound simple when I say it, but these are genuine mistakes others have made. You know, getting your performance frameworks in place early on, getting your finances there, visible, knowing what you're dealing with moving forward. So I think it is huge, though. I'm not going to downplay the size of this. This will probably be the biggest thing I'll ever do in my career, and probably most of the officers that are working alongside me to get there. But I think, you know, again, as public servants, we want the best for residents. So it's absolutely within us all to make sure this works. And culture is just a really good example of, if you flip it on its head, it's an opportunity in a way to reset a culture for an organisation that we might not get the opportunity to do again. So I think from our perspective, it is really big. It is going to take a lot of kind of blood, sweat and tears. But I think we're all really committed to make sure that nobody in Staffordshire suffers as a result of a decision that's not been ours.
Thank you for that. Would you be able to share that report for all the members here? Is that possible? All right, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Oh, Councillor Mackin.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Chair. Thank you for everything that you've just said as well, Martin. I agree on pretty much mostly what you said, especially to do with the rural areas. What I wanted to ask about today, given that LGR could have major implications on, well, for staff structures, what early assessments have been made on staffing levels, troop transfers or redundancies?
Yeah. Staffing is something, it is meant to cause great savings by not having 9 or 10 executives and executives at every single level. But with that comes problems on, and I think on that I'd like to go towards Pete, if he could, on the exact detail. We have done work on the numbers on how many will be merged.
So the PwC model makes assumptions around what some of those staffing efficiencies will be. Predominantly, as you'd expect, the majority of those efficiencies come from senior management type roles. You don't need 8 chief executives, 8 directors of finance, etc. So that releases a significant number of efficiencies. As you go further down the organisation, there are other efficiencies built into the model around contractual arrangements that may be able to be streamlined and economies of scale, etc. But PwC have taken that modelling, and that's based on other experiences that have happened up and down the country and models they've worked on. So it's not to say that there wouldn't be further efficiencies over and above what's stated here, but that's the average that they've seen around the country.
Any other questions? Councillor Elgington.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I can see a disaster in the making, to be honest. I mean, I think last Thursday it was obvious that the whole of the county was united in that chamber. And I'm wondering if we could, what the implications would be if we didn't put an option forward. If, I don't know what the legalities are. I mean, it's sort of like make a protest, obviously get the letters signed. But if we don't put an option forward, that's showing that we mean business. We don't want LGR. And I know we'll sort of be against the governments, whatever they come up with. But I think it's not always about the money. The county doesn't just deal with money. It's people's lives. It's the integrity. It's heritage. This county council stood for 135 years. What will we lose? Let's look at not what we'll gain monetary-wise, what will we lose? In the just outside this room, there's 37 photographs on the wall. Previous chairman. Is our chairman going to be the last? We've got to think. We've got to think of what we're doing. If we can protest and we can get this petition sorted and everybody sign it, we are united. I think it must be possibly the first time that this county has been united as one. In that chamber last week, it was incredible. Mr. Chairman. Martin, thank you.
Yeah, I totally understand the sentiment. As soon as one authority, any council or city council authority, puts through a proposal, it triggers it. Now, that had already been done very, very early on by Stoke-on-Trent. If we do not participate, then we are outside the conversation and out of the room. So absolutely we need to put one through. And that's why. Just by not participating does not prevent it in any way. If all authorities right from the start refused to put one through, possibly. That could have had that could have made a statement. But that was done very, very early on, long before we even stood for elections, and other areas have put theirs through. The opposition to LGR is coming. We are already doing a joint letter, as mentioned earlier. This will carry forward again and again. It will not just be a one letter and forgot process. The important point you make about whichever way that they impose the unitary authorities on us, if we do not get there to at least delay it, we have to be ready. We have to be in the room to be having those conversations to make sure disaster does not ensue. We have to be part of that conversation from day one. So again, you cannot ignore and just say, no, I'm not going to put it through. You're outside the room. We have to be forward. And it was part of the remit for why we said, just make the financial case. Because that detail alone gives us methodology to fix, to make sure it works going forwards. We must all be ready to take on board whatever is forced upon. Hopefully they will listen. There are other areas that do not want this as well. It's not just Staffordshire that are opposed to this. This hopefully may build to something bigger. Devolution can be good. This LGR rush proposal, you brought out a lot of the problems just and in full council, was aired. But we must partake. We must be in the conversation in the room from day one. It's an all or nothing. Well, it has already started long before. Stoke put one through, the County Council Division put one through from here, an initial proposal. Other districts have put through options they were proposing. The process has already started. Let's stay in the room, let's be professional, let's do the business case. Let's remain business-like on this, and then we can make the business case that helps everybody in Staffordshire going forwards. That's our truth, that's our job, that is our role to do. It's our duty to do that. So we'll stay in the room and we'll get it done.
Councillor White.
Thank you very much. So, well said, Councillor Eggington. That's absolutely my position as well. I think, and I said it in the council chamber on Thursday, I think that if, as a council, we cannot come up with a proposal that we actually would want to see come to pass, I agree. I think the best option is that we positively decline and that we state that we do not believe that there is an option that is suitable for Staffordshire and that therefore LGR for Staffordshire should be withdrawn, or as a fallback, the government should take a pause for thought to consider whether LGR is the right option for Staffordshire. I just wanted to ask the question though, just on the legalities. You've said that if we did not submit a proposal that we would be excluded from future discussions. I just wanted to check on what legal basis that would be, because we've had other situations where we've had disagreements with government about policies and we've said no thank you to something, and they've still continued to talk to us about it. It would seem strange that as the largest authority in the county by a country mile, that they wouldn't seek to involve us in any further part of the process just because we've said that we don't believe we can in good faith make a recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll pass over to our legal expert, to Caitlin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the process today, we have responded to a statutory invitation on an interim basis. So proposals from this authority have already gone into government. Just to track from the beginning, so some proposals are already before the government, with then responding to a second invite to put forward full proposals by the 28th of November. Should we decide not to put forward additional proposals for the 28th of November, the interim proposals can then be considered by the Secretary of State. On a legislative basis, the Secretary of State has the powers to invite the Boundary Commission to undertake further investigations and work to support the decision that the Secretary of State needs to make based on the proposals that have been submitted. In response to the specific question raised, not to put in a proposal on the 28th of November means that our original interim proposals are likely to be the ones that are considered. And also it does not mean that there would not be further and future consultation as such with us as an authority, but it means that we would have no effective voice in terms of the additional proposals and work that has been formulated to put forward. I hope that assists, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I think that what that means is that if we decided that there was in fact no proposal that works for the whole of Staffordshire based on the final criteria, and we positively stated that that was the case, nothing would change from the situation that we're in at the moment in terms of the legalities. The government are free to choose whatever option they want. Our interim proposal would be there, but we would have positively stated as a council that we no longer believe that we can deliver an option that is the right thing for Staffordshire. And then the government would have to make whatever decision they make in the face of that clear statement from us. I think that's correct.
Thank you. The point is correct. The legislative point is correct, but it omits then the fact that all of the work and the analysis that has been done to inform the decision of government won't then be presented to government. but the legislative point is correct.
Of course, there'd be nothing preventing us from providing that information to government, and it would seem to be a perverse decision-making process if they didn't take account of information provided when they're making that decision. So we might be heading into the realms of politics now, I know, but that would seem quite strange. So, okay, thank you for that. I've got what I wanted out of the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No. Councillor Bagley.
Sorry, go on.
Just one final question in relation to the single authority. It's stated that a strategic authority can be created for an individual local authority by the Secretary of State in exceptional circumstances. Do we know what those exceptional circumstances are or would be?
There's a lot of things we don't know what are or what would be. Their opaque view on things is infuriating. But as far as we know, and I believe this is correct, that to have a strategic authority must roll over 2 or more unitaries or councils, other authorities. It hasn't got to be unitary, as we see not there, as it can be city districts, but it must roll over multiple authorities. Otherwise, it is just one of the same body.
I understand that bit, but the Secretary of State, it stated that in exceptional circumstances they will consider it for an individual local authority, and I was just wondering if we know what those exceptional circumstances are.
I've not seen one on that. It might be one on the numbers where that is referring to. Their guideline is for 1.5 million plus for a strategic authority, for mayoral authority, and for unitaries to be of 500,000 or more. They would look for strategic authorities to be below that measure on special circumstances, i.e. ours would be such a case at just under 1.2 million. Warwickshire have gone for a single strategic authority because their numbers is far, far lower. There is no way they could not be in a combined authority. It's it's less than 100,000, so they could not sustain a strategic authority at those numbers. Hence why going for a single unitary authority clearly states, yes, we know we must go into a combined authority. Staffordshire, we believe, holds that circumstance, that 1.2 with population growth as well, it becomes closer. We could hold that strategic mayoral authority for a single Staffordshire. Hence why we'd need multiple unitaries below.
Councillor Egginton.
On the final point, Mr. Chairman, I think the government ought to own this, and not us. The people in my parishes, I think everybody in the county, do not want this, and the government need to own it and not us. Therefore, I think we should not put a proposal forward. None of the proposals are good, none of them. There's flaws in everyone, and we've been pushed down this route, and we should just not put an option through, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah,
Chair, if that's a proposal, then I will second it, because we have got a decision to make at the end of this meeting.
Is that a proposal from you? Yeah. Okay, is a seconder? Okay. So, as a committee, we do have to vote on that. So, do we not recommend putting a proposal in? Of recommendation to Cabinet that we do that? Yeah. So, ayes yes to that? Aye. 4. And no?
3, 4, 6. So that's lost.
That's lost, okay. Councillor Murray, did you want to... Are there anything more we want to question on this? No? All right. Thank you for that, Councillor Murray, and thank you for your time. Oh, actually, there's one more thing. I have my own question, is that as we look into this in the future, can we get like information for the people watching this about the problem of transformation? Because this is the easy part, just drawing the lines. The next set is actually the hard part for the officers, for everyone. Just information on that, I think, would be good for people watching this, and for us actually. So,
yeah, when we have the chosen area, we'll have an implementation plan. That needs to be as transparent. That needs to come before these scrutinies. That needs to be shared across everybody as open as possible. We're allowed to do so. It comes back to an earlier point I made. This hasn't even begun. This has not started yet. And it's taken a third of their time already, and this has not even started. What lays before us with this is a mammoth task, and it will take the cooperation of every single council at every single level and every single authority to work together in a partnership to make it right and make it work. Whatever is put before us, our duty is to make it work for Staffordshire. And that is something I think everybody would agree on, from every political background, within every officer. The amount of work coming forwards is monstrous. It is one of the biggest reasons to postpone, because the timeline, I do not believe, is workable. But we will do what is given, and that is our duty, that is our job. We must make it work. And that I do believe that we would get great cooperation across all authorities, all councillors, regardless of politics, just to make it work. It's not ours. It's not our choice. It will be imposed upon us. But let's do the business cases and make it happen.
Mr. Bagley.
Just one more thing, because when you held the vote, I didn't get round to voting because I was actually reading something, but I kind of wouldn't be wanting to vote at this stage anyway, because whilst in absolute principle, I think it's not right for Staffordshire County Council, and on that basis that we make it be known as such. However, before voting to say we don't submit, I think we need to learn a bit more about the implications of not submitting, particularly going forward. Looking at strategic authorities and potential downsides and implications of actually not submitting a proposal. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you. That being the case, and I'd just emphasise, this is all a good faith discussion, isn't it? We're all very concerned about getting the best outcome, because we know the last time this was done was in the 1970s. One of the recommendations that we could make is that further information is provided on that to all council members, so that we can understand that. There's a little bit of this process still to go. I think that would be very helpful if the committee did recommend that.
I'd be happy to recommend that we just have more information for us sent from Martin. That'd be great. Okay. I'll be happy as a committee to note the work that has been done for local government reorganisation. Yeah. All right, wonderful. I'll be happy to note the work that's been done by Councillor Murray about local government reorganisation. Yeah. Right, yeah. All right, great. Thank you for your time, and thanks. Right, item 5, the Q2 integrated performance report. We have the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Large, to present us the report. If you could go through it and summarise the main points, the good parts, the bad parts, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. We're putting forward the Q2 Integrated Performance Report. What it does is it provides an overview of the Council's delivery progress, the performance and the financial position, with its strategic ambitions and the medium-term financial strategy. It also includes a selection of highlights from our 100 days of the Reform administration. The Council is currently reporting on 55 strategic performance measures. That will change going forward when we put our new MTFS forward next year, which have been developed to assess the organisation's performance. Monitoring these measures alongside a delivery of key pieces of work and our financial position help the Council to have visibility of its performance and progress, promote accountability, understand its impact and help drive continuous improvement for the organisation and Staffordshire residents. So in the report we've got the 100 days highlights. Just picking up on a couple of things, it shows that we have 38 measures within our RAG report, that is red, amber, green. 69% are green, meeting or exceeding our targets. We've got 13% which are amber, which they're areas that we have got to improve upon. And then there are 10, which is 18%, which are red, and which means that those are more critical areas that we're having to work on. Some noticeable aspects of positive performance includes the timeliness of highways, high-risk defects, completions and call handling by the Council, as well as a positive performance across the Health and Care Directorate. The Council does continue to face some ongoing challenges that are faced nationally regarding families and children, and particularly the Educational Needs and Disabilities SEND. The performance details can be found in Appendix 1 and 2. Just turning quickly to the finance, the latest revenue forecast shows an underspend of 1.274 million against the balanced budget, with most of the council portfolios either breaking even or delivering a small saving. But as I mentioned earlier, the key pressures in children's services and care commissioning due to rising placement and care costs, though these are largely offset by reserves and targeted interventions. So I put that forward to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Chair. Morning, Councillor Large. Thank you very much for that introduction. My first questions are about the structure of the report itself. It's changed a little bit. I note from the previous reports that we've had, and we've got an introduction and a first section on here about reforms, first 100 days. So I presume that means that everything that's in this report that's in the 100 days section you're claiming as something that reform has delivered. Is that correct?
These are some of the initiatives that we put forward in the first 100 days, yes.
Right, okay, thank you. So just running through some of these, and there's a really helpful graph, isn't there, in Appendix 1 with a little trophy.
Is that on page 48? Well.
Yes, I was just trying to find it actually, so thank you for that. So amongst reforms, and this is the change, the report has now got a political element to it rather than just being a report on council activities. So 100-day delivery highlights. So adult social care services rated good by the CQC. Could you just confirm that the CQC inspection took place in February and March, so before the Reform administration took over the running of the council?
That's a good question. We'll come back to you on that one.
Well, it's factually correct. So that happened in February and March. So that is a success of the council, which we all celebrate, but it's not something that reform had anything to do with. New flag protocol, yep, that's absolutely reforms. Launch Screen Staffordshire. So Screen Staffordshire launched in April 2024. So in what way is that a 100 days delivery highlight for your administration?
It's a highlight that's been put forward through this 100 days, so the achievement of it. That's all we're showing it there.
Okay, so it was launched a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So in what way is it?
And it's been delivered now, so that's what we've finished with.
So it's not a delivery success for reform. It's not a new initiative that reform have brought forwards.
We've completed it within that 100-day period.
Okay, it was launched a year ago.
But it's been finished in the 100-day period.
It's a 3-year. It's a 3-year pilot.
Yes.
Launched a year ago.
And we've furthered that on in the 100 days.
So it's not been completed and it's not been launched during the 100 days.
It's been launched, not within the 100 days, that's correct.
Okay. Achieved county gigabit coverage milestone. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the gigabit broadband programme, I lose track of this now. I think that began at least 5 years ago. I'd look to any officers who know the exact date. But it's at least 5 years ago. So that was achieved in June. So 5 years plus a few weeks of the new administration. So that's in the 100 days because...
Okay. Yes, the 6 months earlier that the previous target, this represents gigabyte connectivity to more than 370,000 premises.
Yep.
So that's the milestone that we've achieved in that area.
That's fine, thank you for that. So the recommendations that we'll vote on a little bit later, the recommendation is notes and challenges the performance and advises of further information and or action required. I think I've just demonstrated this report as it stands is misleading. And I think it needs to be amended. It's unfortunate it's already gone to Cabinet, I believe, but we will be discussing it at full council, and it is a public document. So I think there are some changes. The opening remarks, Councillor Cooper isn't here, so I've deliberately not raised the opening remarks, but two of the things that I've just mentioned are Councillor Cooper's two main highlights for the new administration. I think that table is unfortunate, the one that we've just been discussing. And I think that a recommendation would be that this report is amended so that it doesn't sit in the public domain as it is. We can take recommendations at the end, but I put it there now because I don't want to come back and forth too much. I think I'll leave it there for now. I might come back on some detail later on. But I think it's really important that these public documents that come forward to scrutiny are not political documents. We can do politics in the council chamber or in the outside world. This is a scrutiny document. It's about the performance of the council as a corporate body. And I don't think we need things like this in our reports. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Councillor Lodge. So I'm just kind of bringing together a few kind of things that's been mentioned throughout the document. So the policy of suspending county farms, selling county farms, the strategic direction mentioned on page 71, and the connectivity mentioned on page 95. So just to give people understanding of what I'm saying. So firstly, I would just like to express my support for the policy of suspending the selling of county farms. I think that is a good decision. I think especially in the cost of living crisis that's affecting our country and our residents, that's important to protect the future of our agricultural productivity in our county. Not only does this benefit the local economy by ensuring long-term job security, but also protects us from rising food prices in an increasingly uncertain global market. So my questions on that front is, you mentioned specifically you don't want to sell county farms for use of solar panels, which again I completely agree with. I don't think agricultural land is the place for solar panel production. But you said you would be potentially moving forward with using agricultural buildings as sites for EV charging, which I do think is a good decision as well. So when it comes to the strategic direction, you've mentioned you want to explore new income generation schemes, and I was just wondering, Are these kind of agricultural buildings that can be used for solar panels, is that one of the kind of income schemes that you're thinking of pursuing in the future? And again, this ties into the kind of the connectivity section on page 95, sorry, where you've mentioned that EV charging has been implemented on council-owned car parks. Is this something that you're going to be pursuing further with council-owned car parks having EV charging in? And can I confirm that the county council will be receiving the income from these ports, and therefore this is another revenue stream that can be reinvested into these kind of initiatives in the future?
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Yes, the county farms, we're very keen to consider. The main aspect is its field to fork and food production. Obviously, every farm is very different, and we are developing a strategy now for that. Where we encourage solar panels onto farm buildings, for example, that will be effectively to reduce the carbon footprint of that. And that's a sensible thing to do. We would advocate that, but not the BES solar battery farms. We are opposed to that approach. Regarding the area of EV charging, as you know, we've still in communication with the government on the Levi project, and should that come back to fruition, our intention is to make use of the money from that in the most appropriate places for EV charging, such as bus stations, railway stations and so on, and that's our plan to do that.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Councillor Hall.
Good morning, Councillor Large. But I mean, I've got a couple of questions, and they both really fall under financial sort of stewardship and risk, although not specifically raised in the report, but I think they're highly relevant, and probably I'd like them to be raised in future reports. And the first one, I suppose, in the context of the Council's ongoing efficiency reviews and transformational programme. I mean, I'd like to really see what's being outlined as what strategies the Council has really with the adoption of artificial intelligence and automation. I mean, only yesterday, I think it was announced that Amazon are reducing their white-collar staff by, I think, around 10%, 30,000 people because of automation. I would imagine they're pretty far ahead of the game compared to, let's say, Staffordshire County Council. So I think really, I mean, I mean, one of the benefits of that, it could, release staff, of course, for, higher value work. So I think I'd like to see some real targeting and real implementation plan of AI within the company. I mean, I work within a law firm at the moment. We're talking 20 to 40% productivity gains from AI. So I think we've got a rather large law department here. So I mean, that's something else could be considered. And the second one, and I'm actually going to see a company about this afternoon with Councillor Murray, because it's in his patch, is regarding the Council's position regarding developer and performance bonds, and is there any scope to release or repurpose historic bonds to support current infrastructure priorities? I've uncovered a couple. I'm sure there must be a lot of them. I know we have actually already spoken, but I'd like to put it on record. That's something I think would be of great interest to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halls. I'll call upon an officer to assist me on some of those points. Yes, we've done the financial efficiency reviews, and we've now commenced a headcount efficiency review. As people are aware, we've also made a headcount freeze other than essential workers, and we're also doing a review of temporary staff, day raters and consulting companies, and all of that has been put under the radar. We've a special group that are doing the selection of recruitment now, so we're doing a check and challenge on all of that. And it's a good point that you've made about some big international and very large employers in the UK are reducing their headcount, which is adding to the overall unemployment of the UK at the moment, and people are beginning to feel the strain. They're also beginning to hold their breath for another 3 or 4 weeks, ready for the next budget. And again, I think we will expect to see a further shedding of headcount in many organisations. Our view is not to do that. Our view is not to take a blunderbuss to this, but to work effectively with the officers, to work with the staff, bottom up. And that is to go into different departments and find out ways that we can work better, faster, quicker and more efficiently. So that's the first thing. And secondly, in terms of AI, I think it's worthwhile going over to an officer to talk about where we're progressing that. I would say generally AI is not a big thing. Tech is not a big thing in Staffordshire County Council, in my opinion. I think that we can make a lot of gains in those areas in the coming years. We have some pockets where AI is used, but I think that technology is something that we should be looking at more widely. Just something simple like the expenses programme is so old-fashioned and archaic. That would save an awful lot of time for everybody if we had a simple zero package. I mean, that's the type of thing that we need to be looking at. And I'm not talking about purchasing a zero package. We very much can work with people like Keel and our own teams to develop simplified app technology through Zamaring and things like this that don't cost a lot of money, and it will save people like our social workers and our care workers a lot of time when they're filling in their expenses sheets. So those are the simple things that we need to do and quick wins that we can achieve.
A couple of things really. So spot on in a sense in that, you know, have we maximised it as well as we possibly could? Probably not. I think it is slightly more difficult in local government. But a couple of things what I would perceive as highlights, because AI and digital innovation actually sits with me. So we have launched an AI framework. As you've just said, that's what lots of organisations do. We also did an assessment on the organisation as to where we were digitally. How much do we use it? How much do people understand it? We scored slightly below the middle. And I think my personal experience was I kind of expected that really, given where the organisation was, you know, how much we embrace that type of technology. And couple of things that we're doing. So we've launched the AI framework. We've got quite a few pilots running at the moment, quite successfully actually. So one of the biggest ones that we've seen ensure that it's been more really efficient for the staff is one called Magic Notes. So if you think about it really simply, and we were talking about vulnerable children quite a lot today, and this is why this one's really important. You know, a social worker visits a family, they're doing an assessment, they're writing the notes, they'll come back to the office, they have to then put the notes onto the system, so on and so on. What that means in reality is all that time back in the office, putting that back on the system, is actually taking time away from being able to see another family and spending more time with the family. So one of the things we've looked at is how can we maximise the time a social worker can actually spend with vulnerable children and families. And what this pilot showed us is it absolutely saves them so much time from having to come back and then type that on the system, because it's doing it live and updating onto the system that they use instead of having to come back and then redo that work. And another one that we've been working on that's also been really successful is around the translation of our documents. So on average it used to take around 15 days if you ask for a document to be in another language. What this does is it can do it in 3 minutes. At an absolute, you know, very, very, very minimal cost. Lots of these pilots are ongoing at the minute, and I'd suggest, Chris, it might be good for us to bring that digital innovation programme in the new year once we've reset our new plans and our delivery plan, so you can kind of hold us accountable for the things we've got upcoming in the coming year. And then the other thing we also do is we're working really closely with Keele University. It's really hard for us as a local authority to compete with the private sector when it comes to getting, you know, good officers that are really tech savvy, because the reality is the private sector often pays more, and they want to go into that, you know, more private sector industry. So we've been working really closely with Keele University to see if we can do things differently. So can we have, you know, apprentices and students that can come in and work for us? And every time they do, they learn me something new because of the new thing that they've been learnt at university. But it's bringing those really good, you know, forward-thinking ideas that I wouldn't know about. So we've got a few things running at the minute, and I'd be happy to come back in the new year when we reset our plans so you can have a look at some of the things we've got coming up.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'll hand over to Pete, the Director of Finance, in a second. Just let me pick up on a couple of things there. The typical type of thing we're talking about is things like magic notes. It costs us quite a significant amount of money to have that bit of software. My thinking is, and that is that with Xamarin capabilities on app technology, we don't need to be a rocket scientist to be able to replicate magic notes. Same thing with, there are expenses products out there that we can use. And I think that's an important thing. We've also been running a pilot on PayPoint, which has had some support again for some of our social workers when they've been handling cash payments. So technology is being used. And just to give you an example, we started a strategic review on our websites because we've got around 100 different websites. And that is quite significant. And we're planning to create it's one of the strategies that we want to deploy for next year is an internal customer philosophy. So like an internal customer shop. So we want to develop our skill set in things like web development, app development, working with people like Keele, bringing on apprentices that can help us do that. We want to try and bring in that 100 websites so that we can get some uniformity across brand, we can get some economies of scale in terms of network charging and this type of thing, and that will enable us to do that. We've got a team working in Lindsay's area that are bringing all this together, and I want them to become an internal shop, an internal supplier of the service, which again is with lots of SLAs and service standards, so it improves the internal competence that's happening. Just to pick up on the final point is you asked about the bonding. I think it's worthwhile passing over to Pete. Do you have a mention on that?
If I can just come back on the innovation first of all, Councillor Large. So absolutely agree, Councillor. You picked particularly on legal services. That's an area that we've been looking at under the leadership of Kate Loader there. So how do we integrate AI into, we've got working with LexisNexis on some of that, the case management system, and how more of that can be automated. So absolutely, it's an area that we're exploring, and I'm sure there's more to do in that space as well. As an authority, we're currently out to procure for a new integrated ERP system, which is bringing together, as Councillor Large alluded to, our finance, HR and payroll solution and how we automate many functions within that. It wouldn't be suitable for us to have small bolt-on systems, given the size and complexity as an organisation, but we can have a more modern solution. So that's something we're looking into and will be implemented over the next 18 months or so, absolutely to your point, and how we integrate with AI into the finance space in there. With regards to the bond, I am aware of some of your points. Can I take that away and give you an answer offline on that once we've explored maybe some of the other areas? I'm happy that it comes back here with the report. Yeah.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure as a committee we'd be happy for a report on digital technology to come back in the new year and see what's going on with that, so please, that'd be amazing. So
we're preparing that at the moment. There's a number of, that's part of a strategic review, and once it's fulfilled that, then we'll be bringing that to you. Thank you.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, apologies for that. There was a pop-up ad on the Express and Star that I wasn't expecting. It's quite awkward. So the question relates to page 95, talking about waste and sustainability projects. The solar panels and the climate change budget have been basically postponed for now, essentially. So I was just wondering how long until these, reviews are complete, and when will these be coming back towards scrutiny so that, councillors can have a look at the proposals and see whether we agree with the Cabinet's decision to either suspend, reduce or, completely cancel these kind of projects. I just want to specifically make the point, because we have mentioned about the levy charging today, and I just think that was very poorly explained in the scrutiny meeting in July by the leader, in terms of the fact that the Cabinet will be pursuing it. And that's what I was double checking with the Express and Star, actually, was the fact that it wasn't until last week that the Cabinet had then reconfirmed that they definitely will be, publicly reconfirmed that they will be moving forward with these proposals. So if it is the case that these plans will be moving forward, please can this be better communicated to both other councillors and residents, so that we're all on the same page about things and other councillors aren't in an uninformed situation because of poorly explained justifications.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Rose. Yes, I mean, the answer to that question is it was rejected, as you know, the principle. We were quite happy to look at EVs, but it was the plan and the structure sitting behind it, and that then had to go back via an officer because it's never been done before. They've never gone back and said, I'm sorry, but we don't like this rollout plan, and we're still not heard from them as far as I'm aware. I'm looking to our lawyer. I don't think we've heard back from the government. Darryl Ayres, who's been managing that, I don't think he's come back to us, as we've not had a response yet.
Not to my knowledge.
But yes, you're right. It was the fact that it was the first time it's ever been done where we've actually rejected it. And we are supportive of an EV programme, but not the way that they were doing it.
Yeah, so just to complete on that, I agree. I think it was the explanation of what was said in the previous scrutiny meeting compared to what the feelings were of the Cabinet that was poorly explained, and that led to the situation of not everyone understanding what the Cabinet's actual proposals were. Because you're saying, obviously you are now moving forward with it, but you're restructuring the actual ideas behind it, which is fine. That's completely fine. I think it was poorly explained that was the original intention by the Cabinet in the first place. Because from me, it seemed as if the leader just wanted to completely reject the funds entirely and not move forward with any EV charging port, whereas now it's actually come to light that you do want EV charging ports, but you want it to be in the right place, kind of thing. So it's that explanation that I think was lacking previously.
Yes, I mean, again, I come back to it, and that is because it's never been done before, we had to reject it because we were in a consortium. So we had to indicate that we were not going to be participating in the consortium based upon the terms and conditions. So we took advice, and it was a case of we have to reject it, and then we'll go back with a view that's saying, but it was part B, the rollout, that we were really objecting to. And so we had to physically say, we're rejecting this, and then allowed the officer to go back and say, put an alternative solution forward. And as I say, we still haven't heard back from them on that.
Councillor White.
Thank you very much. Just got two questions. So question one is, it's actually picking up on two of the remarks that Councillor Hall made both a moment ago and in the previous items. So there's a wealth of opportunity in terms of AI and the acceleration of that technology and how we can harness that. And we've got a shared interest in terms of law firms doing that. So I recruit lawyers for them, and I'm hoping they'll not all disappear. And I don't think they will, because I think what we're seeing is organisations now drawing the distinction between process-oriented tasks, of which there are many in law firms, and ones where you need that human capital, you need a person on the end of it. And we have got some good opportunities coming up over the next year or two, because we've got some of our contracts which are at break points, meaning that some of those expensive IT services that we buy, we can do something new and better with. But my question, just looking forwards a little bit, is if we do get put through a reorganisation and we have new councils that we're forming from the ground up, I think it would be really good if we could do some work about embedding this from the ground up in those new organisations. So the point that Councillor Hall made earlier about culture eating structure for breakfast, I absolutely agree with as well. So creating that culture in the new organisations that may follow on from this council, where we're really clear that we will need to do things differently, and there are things at the moment that have a human on the end of them that won't in the future, and we've got that opportunity to build from the ground up. And then I have a second question in a moment.
Yes, Councillor White, thank you. That's absolutely exactly what we've got to do. The view came when we were looking at LGR about the county, and I think we came up with the officers a resounding view that we need to be match fit. We've got to be ready for this, and we've got to be on the front foot and leading the way, not following, so that when things like, and Councillor White asked the question earlier about transition, and obviously this is an area of my expertise, and we've talked about how we develop that roadmap, but we've got to be fit for it. We've got to have the right people in place, we've got to be skilled up, we've got to have the right AI tools. So what we're doing is over the next 20 months, 2 years, we're now saying as an organisation we need to be match fit in every way with LGR on a line of sight, and to be ready to lead this progress and the transition going forward. So that's a good point.
And then second question quickly. The efficiency review was mentioned. So that was completed in August, I see in the report. When will we be bringing that here for scrutiny?
I'll hand that over to our financial officer.
So the outcome of the efficiency reviews fed into one of 3 boxes, really, Councillor White. So either that was for the member to understand their portfolio areas a little bit more and ask those questions of officers, to feed the strategic vision document that I believe will be coming to full council for approval later in the year, or to feed the MTFS, and again you'll have full visibility of the MTFS and scrutinise that. So while the efficiency review won't come back, the outputs of that will feed into the documents.
Okay, so there's no plan to bring it here for scrutiny. So just in summary then, because there's been a lot of interest in council efficiency and identifying waste. So in summary then, that efficiency review hasn't found any significant areas of waste in the organisation. Is that correct?
It has, well, the waste is one thing, efficiency is another, so savings. Some departments we've seen evidence where we've gained further efficiency. We've identified also during that areas of action points. So I think we came up with about 45 action points that led into other areas of where we could identify some areas of waste or some areas where we want to change the way we work. It's the word waste is one thing. It's about being efficient, and if that means that we save money because we become more efficient as a result of doing the process, then that benefits the county and it benefits the MTFS, as the officer said. All of those 3 elements are now going to be fed into our strategic plan, which is we've now nearly completed. And also we're working on the MTFS. So all of those efficiencies will come into that, and you'll see them coming through.
Okay, that's fine. So what I'm interpreting that is that sounds more like business as usual, actually. So every year in the run-up to the MTFS, we'll review the organisation. We'll look for areas where we might want to do things differently to improve the organisation or find efficiencies. My expectation would be if there was anything above and beyond that, if there was any obvious areas of waste in the classic definition of the term, that you would bring that paper here for scrutiny. As you're choosing not to, I interpret that as business as usual. You've got 45 lines of inquiry for the MTFS. That sounds very similar to previous years. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Lodge, I have 3 questions. I would like to ask, what are the Cabinet members' priorities for the next quarter? How will performance data be used to inform budget planning and resource allocation? And are there any anticipated risks or challenges that the council should prepare for in the future? Thank you.
I'll try and address them one at a time. The cabinets, all the cabinet members have individual projects going off at the moment. So obviously we're working on the strategic document. We've been working on LGR, and we're working on a number of projects that you're aware of. Strategic headcount reviews. We've got strategic reviews of different departments, and we're obviously working on the MTFS. So those, some of them are more sort of longer, medium and longer term, and some of them are day-to-day working areas. In children and families, the two cabinet members are basically working with the director, the officer, and they're trying to improve the KPIs that are in those areas. So they've got one eye on the strategy and developing that, but they're also very much sleeves rolled up and working with the officer to try and fix some of the KPI shortfalls that we've got. So that's what all the cabinet members are working on. The efficiency reviews and the strategic review, should I say, is a number of cabinet members, such as Councillor Screen, is working on things like community safety and trading standards. So that's a strategic project that we have running. And so that picks up the... Does that answer your first question? Okay. Could you just say the second question again for me?
How will performance data be used to inform budget planning and resource allocations or allocation?
Thank you. All of the information, any strategic review that we do, any form of modification that we do, any project that we're running, all of them are going to be, we want to take them out of business as usual. So that means that we can allocate budget to it, we can allocate headcount to it, and we can allocate KPIs and outcome. All of those will be monitored and fed into our new metrics that are going forward to 2026. And any improvements in terms of money will be fed into the MTFS. And I think your third question was about risk.
And the third question was, are there any anticipated risks or challenges that the council should be prepared for?
I think the main risk is obviously what we're experiencing now with SEND and adult care. The government have yet again kicked the can down the road regarding the resolving the problem with SEND, and that is probably financially our biggest worry at the moment. I think it's clear to say that all of the other areas that are within our direct control, we have got a good grip on those things. We have the fair funding review, which we're still waiting from the outcome of that. That is connected to obviously council tax and the charging. So we're waiting until the third week in November or the beginning of December for that piece of information. We don't know what it will fully be, but we're trying to anticipate what it's going to be all about. We obviously are committed to try and be equitable with council tax going forward, but we'll have to wait and see what that fair funding review comes back with. And obviously we then got the budget in 3 weeks' time. So if there's any move that she makes on things like the minimum wage or the hourly rate, or she moves thresholds, then that will affect us financially, and we'll have to take that into consideration at that time. Does that cover the points? Thank you.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so on page 94, just talking about the projects of reinventing Chasewater, Cannock Chase Discovery Centre and revitalising Staffordshire Way have all been put on hold. I noticed that Councillor Hall's actually already commented on that, saying that obviously the council is, wanting to move forward with these initiatives and is making sure that the proposals are going to be as beneficial to local residents as possible. But there's quite a few projects that have all been you know, under review, have been, you know, suspended for now. So I was just wondering, how long are these reviews going to take until these kind of projects start going back up again? I understand that obviously, because you're doing it to such a wide variety of different portfolio kind of projects, that they're not all going to be done at the same time. But, you know, when are these going to start, when are these reviews going to start coming back to us to go back through kind of thing?
Thank you, Councillor Rose. That's a good question. Because we're doing the strategic review for the new administration, and some of the projects that we've got in hand, what we're trying to do is review each one as they are at the moment. We're committed to doing them, but what we want to do is take a step back and just review them. I guess one of the things about the administration's going forward strategy is we want to look at the commercial elements of the proposal. So where we've got things like Cannock Chase, we've got an opportunity not just to rebuild a building, but we've got an opportunity to look at the commercial elements of that in terms of if you're rebuilding a building and we can get half a dozen rooms that we can rent out, that effectively creates an ROI connected to Cannock Chase, which allows us to offset some of the cost of that. There's obviously the massive cost with regarding car park for Cannock Chase, which is again a massive expense. And again, these so we're trying to put a commercial element on going forward. Regarding Chasewater, this is a tremendous project and something that we should be very proud of to develop. What we want to try to do is to get to a stage of a blue sky document very quickly and then start to go out to private enterprise, because the area of Chasewater holds so much potential for the A5, and obviously with the West Midlands interchange, we've got such huge opportunity there. So we've taken a little step back, widened our remit, again, on the view of saying if we can get external investment into that, it will help us save more money for the council in the long term.
Yeah, I think that sounds fantastic. Absolutely agree with everything you've said there. So I was the question more was timeline scale of things. So, you know, how long until we kind of see these coming back? But like I say, everything you said, agree with.
The timeline-wise, Hayley Coles, Councillor Coles, is the cabinet lead on that, and we're working with the officers. We've got a project plan in, and they're all on our timeline. What you'll see when we produce the strategic document, all of our projects will be in there with a Gantt chart to show him. We're working on some of them now, and then they'll have some deliverables at stages through 26 and 27. We're very much looking for some key milestones along the way rather than just looking at an end date. So, and I think that's another important thing, working with the officers. We're now working month by month rather than year by year because of LGR. We want to try and get some quick wins and some initiatives in during 26. So you'll see a defined timeline coming in our strategic plan.
Any other questions? Councillor Egginson?
Yes, excuse me, Mr. Chair, if I've jumped the gun. Public rights of way and the Crow Panel, which encompasses public footpaths, or as it's been mentioned to me, people's footpaths by some of my residents. We obviously cover bridleways and green space, public green spaces. At the minute, we're meeting with the panel, and Councillor Large will obviously come up with some ideas with regard to what we're spending legally on some of these cases. Just quickly, just put you into perspective. So we're actually scrutinising all the officers involved in a nice way. We've sort of met with the officers, and basically, the panel's found that we've got a backlog of over 260 cases going back 20 years. And we've listened to the officers and the legal team, and in September, after discussions, it was suggested that we delegate some of the cases that are to be determined by the Secretary of State. And the panel voted to approve this motion. This was to free up wasted time by the officers going back and forward, wasting the panel's time. So hopefully we'll try and get through some of these backlogs. So although there's no cost savings in monetary value yet, I'm sure Councillor Large will, using his analogy, look under the bonnet, take the engine out, and we think we've now got the cylinder head off. So we're looking in every corner of what's going on. So the panel's offered to attend more meetings regularly to get through this backlog, if required. But we feel the need that we need to scrutinise costs spent on barristers, solicitors and specialists. So obviously with Chris Large and his budgetary responsibility cabinet, we'll look into that. Some of the public inquiry cases could cost the county millions of pounds in costs. Some of them are public green spaces issues, and we feel that we need the officers to do due diligence so that some of these cases don't go against us and cost us a load of money. I must congratulate the officers. This is a massive amount of work. It doesn't sound much, public rights away in Crow, but it's a massive amount of work. In one of the panel meetings, I actually held up a document. It was 100 millimetres thick of paper going back 20 years, old maps, documents, and to put this amount of information legally as a congratulation, I've got to congratulate the officers. It was a massive amount of work, and I held it up in front of the camera so that the general public could see just how much work goes into some of these cases. So I'd like to congratulate the officers and the legal team for getting all these cases forward, and hopefully we can get down this backlog of 260 cases that we've inherited. I don't know how come we've inherited it, but we're talking of quite a substantial amount of money to get through some of these cases. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Thank you for that. I sort of turned to our lawyer to ask if do you want to make a comment on that?
Thank you. I've noted what's been said today. I welcome more information in relation to the discussions that have been taking place in relation to this matter. Thank you.
We were only introduced to this because this is Councillor Coles' area, and so we were really only introduced to this about 2 to 3 weeks ago. We met with the officers and we discussed it. The view, I think, when we'd understood the complexity of it, the size of it, and just the job in hand, it made me realise that we should have a strategic review. So with the officer, Darrell Ayres, we said, OK, let's take a step back on this and start to look at how we can deal with this problem. And so what we've done is Councillor Coles and I are going to work with the officers and widen the remit to how we overcome this problem. There's thousands of miles worth of footpaths, small bridges, and obviously there is that risk of liability. And for some reason it has sort of got behind. We are, in terms of as a county, no different to many other counties. I think that there are many, many counties across the UK that are in exactly the same position as ourselves. But I think it needs some wide thinking. We need to think out of the box with this. With the advent of drone technology, with the advent of using other groups of people. And so we're widening the project. And we're also looking at the people that are involved in that programme. But I'd like to make it into a project, again, because then we can keep strict control over the costs, the headcount, and the outcomes and the KPIs that go with it. So does that give you some reassurance? Okay.
Are there any other questions? I'll ask some of my questions I've got here. So there's a few questions, but if you look at page 71, they're setting out a strategic direction, and there's a few things you've already gone through today, which is digital technology and what's happening there. You went through that. But there's other ones like new ways of working. What is that? I don't know what that is. I guess transformation of services, is that also with AI and exploring income generation? What does all this involve? Could you set some information out about that, please?
Thank you. New ways of working, yes. These are probably some of the strategic reviews that we're doing. Trading standards is a really good example. They're quite a reactive group of people. They have a lot of statutory obligations, and they tend to be quite reactive in the way that they respond to the demands of Staffordshire in terms of businesses and farms and so on. What we're doing is working with that team from bottom up. We're doing a storyboard. In other words, how can they become proactive hunters rather than reactive? And working with Councillor Screen and with the police services, we want to try and dovetail the two more cohesively together so that we can be much more proactive in taking rogue businesses out of circulation, and we start targeting them in a different way to where we currently, with the way we currently do it. That would also apply with, we've got a strategic review on complaints. In fact, I've just received an email on that. Again, a strategic review basically means it's a bottom-up approach, because for the last 3 or 4 years, we've had the same old same. And that is, we get a lot of complaints coming in. Often the complaints are, some of the bigger complaints are driven by staff behaviour. And particularly when it's been upheld, some of the complaints are being upheld by the electorate. Now this requires education and dealing with staff training. But we want to try and put in a new system of complaints, because one of the first principles of any complaint is if you deal with it quickly and effectively, then they often go away. The customers tend to be much more satisfied because you're on the case, you own it, and someone in the council will own it and get back to them very quickly. So our new standards are going to change. We're going to put some new SLAs in place. That's a service level agreement. We're putting in some new KPIs. We will be introducing some new training, but that's just part of the proposal that we've got at the moment. But there will be a document that comes to Cabinet and ultimately to yourselves so that you can have a view of that. So if that answers your question about the changes in work practices, those are some of the things that we'll be doing.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted clarification on what's going on really and what's happening in the future, so that's beneficial. Are there any other questions from members?
I can make one more, Chair, is we've got one on a strategic review on libraries and community hubs. Councillor Murray earlier mentioned about the community hubs. We currently have our own managed libraries, but we also have a lot of community managed libraries. And I don't know whether any of you have had experience of them, but some of them are incredible places. You know, if we take, so what we've done is we want to try and create best practice where we've sent out questionnaires to the public, and we're also consulting with our own libraries as well as our community managed libraries about how we can work differently in the future with the mindset of the community hub. As Councillor Murray said, in our first early investigations, what we're finding is that the libraries are not just a place where people take a book. There's a huge plethora of different groups and activities that go on in these places, and they're fantastic. You know, one of our best practice sites is Shenston, where they've got 80 volunteers. It's a wonderful experience going there. They have a coffee shop. They book the trend on terms of footfall. There's over 70,000 people go in and out of that place every year, and it's run by the community. You walk in there and the community presence is felt with local schools writing things on the wall. You know, the groups doing crocheting and craft work, and they even have an ensemble that comes in once a month. They also have some of our other areas, as Councillor Murray mentioned, such as Codsall, where people can come in and they can get information about what's happening in the council, and they can be signposted to different places. So all of this information is coming together, and we're working with the officers to create that best practice, and then we will start to roll that out in probably the second or third quarter of 2026. But again, that's all to do with behavioural change and how we interface with the electorate differently. Thank you.
Thank you. If everyone's happy... Oh, Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's kind of a trivial point, to be honest with you, compared to a lot of the things we've discussed today. But because it was in the document, I was just wondering So the new flag policy, I was just interested why the decision was made to include the Staffordshire County banner but not the St George's flag. Specifically, I'd like to note that my preference would be to use the historic county flag, not the banner, because to me the banner seems more as an advertisement of the county council rather than actually the heritage of our county. So was it purely like a financial decision in the fact that you already own several county banners, and so therefore why not use them if we already have them? Or was there another reason behind it? And I know it might not be your area, but obviously it's in this document, so it's, you know.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. I don't know. the answer to that is we made a decision on the flags, and that's a good point, and I'll take it back and we'll consider it. I think it's a good point. You know, it was never brought up at the time as a question in hand, but I think that's a good point to make, and we'll pick it up and look at it. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you. Just coming back to my original question, and there's been a bit of advice going back and forth from officers, and I understand that we don't have the power to retrospectively amend reports here, but it's just an ask to the Cabinet member. Could you please review the report as it's come to us today and make sure that anything that's misleading in there, and we've discussed some things in there which are misleading, that those are not represented in the leader's statement at Cabinet, and if anything can be removed from any public sources that is misleading, be grateful to that. It would be good in future if the reports that come here could be non-political, so that we can have the really good discussion, which we've had plenty of today, but without the politicking. These scrutiny meetings shouldn't really be about politicking. So it's just an ask. It doesn't need a response today unless the Cabinet member wants to. But I personally would like to see more of the good discussion and less of the tub thumping. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. We will look at the document and we will clarify the points that we've made in there. And I agree with you. We don't want to bring politics into this scenario. In fact, as you know, I hate politics. I think the most important thing is that we will clarify the point regarding the Screen Staffordshire and the other points, and we'll update those in the document.
Thank you for that. If everyone's happy with the report, are we happy to accept it? Yep. All right. Wonderful. Item 6, the work programme. It's over to you, Mandy.
Thank you, Chair. This is the committee's work programme. The only changes since the last meeting are the Climate Change Annual Report is now going to the Environment, Infrastructure and Communities Committee, as this is the most appropriate committee for scrutiny. There's a session on finance training which has been arranged for the committee and cabinet members on the 24th of November. A calendar invite will have been sent out to members.
I hope everyone can attend the financial training because there's someone from the LGA coming here, and it's going to help where everyone here learn about finance, the scrutiny, and that should be just beneficial for everyone. So thanks to the officers who set this up, and hopefully everyone comes here and we can do our best with it. Councillor Rose?
Yeah, can I just ask what the can I just ask for the full justification of why the climate change report's been moved to a different committee? What's the full justification for the removal of that topic?
I think it's been moved because it's not a strategic priority anymore, even though we haven't technically had the new strategic planning, but it's more appropriate now for it to sit under environment, infrastructure and communities.
Well, I would query if it's not the relevant committee if there's no strategic plan to actually justify that. So therefore, I wouldn't agree with that at all, because you can't actually justify it because there's no plan at the moment. So I don't think that's appropriate.
I think when the strategy comes out in February, that's when the strategic plan comes from the administration. I think that should give clarity. If it is a strategic thing, that would be then coming to here. But because we don't know yet, that's why it's been placed there. I hope that's beneficial.
Yeah, but surely it should be sticking to the original plan until a new plan has actually come forward, because at the moment it just seems like you're stabbing in the dark and don't know where to send it, so you just think, oh, we'll send it somewhere else.
Can we get some more information from the cabinet member and then circulate it to the committees?
Yeah, we can do that and hopefully it'll help you out. Yep. Is that fine with everyone? Yep. Item 7, the exclusion of the public. There's nothing in this part, so if there's nothing else to be discussed, that's the end of the meeting. So thank you.